Welcome to the Still City Recovery Podcast, your beacon of hope and support on the journey to recovery from addiction. Whether you're contemplating a life free from substance dependency or are already on the path to sobriety, this podcast is here for you. Each episode, we're going to dive deep into the stories and experiences of individuals who have walked the road of recovery, alongside expert insights from mental health professionals and addiction specialists. Our mission is simple: to provide you with valuable tools, resources, and a supportive community to help you navigate the challenges and celebrate the victories of your recovery journey. So grab a seat, open your heart, open your mind, and let's embark on this transformative journey together. This is Steel City Recovery. So I'm joined today by Jace, who's very kindly agreed to come and share a little bit about his recovery and his recovery journey. And I think I've got this right, but you're 67 days sober today.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Awesome. Well done. Congratulations. It's really great to have you here, and I appreciate you coming up all the way from Norfolk.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.
No problem.
So I wanted to start by asking you, what was life like for you before you got sober?
So I was quite a late bloomer to the drinking game, really. I sort of had a lot of hobbies, football as a youngster, and the pub environment didn't really appeal to me. And I was in with quite a good gang at school. And then when I turned 18, I still hadn't had my first alcoholic drink. And I went out sociably with my friends, again in a reasonably good gang, not trying to lead me astray or anything, which I obviously found out later on I am easily led. So it was pretty good. And I was drinking for the right reasons. I was drinking to go out, have fun, 18-year-old, you know, all the dizzy lights of King's Lynn,
Sure.
Really not that dizzy. And that was all good. However, as time went on and I started up a sign making company when I was 21, I started to get a few more sort of issues personally. So not really know how to deal with stress, things like that. And that's when obviously drink decided to come more heavily involved in my life. That was my best friend, because if anything ever went wrong, it was the beer that would take that away, and on it went. And that went on for, 16 years. To start with, it wasn't as bad. It was sort of 2 or 3 times a week. I would come home, probably not had the best day, and I think, well, how do I get this out of my head? So I'll go to the shop and drink, and that would happen 2 or 3 times a week. But as time progressed, it got really, really bad. And the illness progressed to the point where I was actually drinking near enough every day.
Okay.
And it was all day, not turning up to work. You know, it was getting desperate and desperate and desperate. And my circle was getting lower and lower and lower. So,
Yeah, I think you've described there what we would class as sort of the progression of alcoholism or an addiction, where you were, young, loose, fancy free, having a good time, drinking for all the right reasons, socially, and then it became part of a way of self-soothing.
It was, and the thing that I never really thought of myself as was an alcoholic. As I thought I had a drinking problem, everyone around me actually thought I had a drinking problem. They didn't really necessarily think I was an alcoholic, and I will say that the media perceives alcoholics. I weren't having vodka on my Special K or anything. But as time went on, it just got more and more. And also, one thing that I did find was I'd start to be ashamed of the amount that I've drunk. And with that being the case, I don't want to be ashamed anymore. So do you know what I'll do? I'll drink again.
Yeah.
And then, like a normal human being would say, you know what, we'll go to the pub, we'll drink from 6 p.m. till 12 midnight, cut it off. I would go to 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, fall asleep, and then I'd wake up at 8, devastated at what I've done, who I've upset. So do you know what? I can't deal with that. So I'll go to the shop and buy a bottle of red wine at 9:30. Ring them up. Are you open? Yeah. What time do you sell alcohol? Oh, we've got a 24-hour license. Oh man, you're my best friend. So off I go, and then I don't care about the times before, and then it's round and round. So your body can't take it anymore, and your friends can't take it anymore, and your family can't take it anymore, your partners can't take it anymore, and that was that. And it was getting to that situation. Well, it was that situation when I come to Sheffield.
Yeah. Okay. I can relate to what you're saying, by the way. I think it's really important when we talk about sort of identification, because, you know, addiction is isolation, recovery is connection, and you know, drinking on the shame and the guilt
Yeah.
of the night before is often something that I hear, and certainly something that I experienced when I was drinking and using.
I'm a very social person, and I've become unsocial. You know, I started drinking to go out in Kings Lynn to meet people, you know, football, cricket, watch the football, watch the boxing, done that. And I still did do that as an addict. You know, I still did do that, but it didn't stop there. It carried on and on and on, you know, and I've missed, you know, the fight that I was watching. I can't remember anyway. Who won? Look on Sky Sports app. Oh, he won, did he?
Yeah.
You know, and that was that. And then in the end, the isolation, I'd be sitting in a room, spending £35 on Just Eat, buying 25 chicken legs just to get a bottle of wine. The chicken would go in the bin. You know, and because obviously you need to spend £35 to get alcohol delivered to your house, you know, I'll just buy desserts. Tom and Jerry, Ben and Jerry's ice cream. Just so I know that I won't waste that. It's in the freezer, so the money's not gone. The business head's in me a bit there, but I've got my 16 bottles of Tiger, I've got my red wine, and then what have you. So
I love the way you've sort of rationalised that and justified it by, if I can do it and get Ben and Jerry's, at least I'm getting something that I can dig into a bit later.
It's still frozen. It won't go out of date for a long time, and there it is. So yeah.
But that just sort of demonstrates, I suppose, in the way that we think when we're in that alcoholic process or an addictive cycle, is that the way that we can sometimes think about a situation and rationalize it and justify it to meet our own means.
Definitely.
And I picked up on something you said there earlier, you know, like we go out and watch the boxing or we go and play pool. Actually, for me, it was never about playing pool and never about watching the boxing. It was an opportunity to drink.
Yep.
And I took any opportunity to drink. So it's you know, appreciate you sharing that, because I think that will help probably people who are listening to this have a light bulb moment to think, actually, that's similar to how I behave, because that's what this is all about. Yeah. This is sharing our own experiences and being able to talk openly about a situation that hopefully will resonate with somebody else.
And that's the thing with the addiction. The fact of the matter is, you find an excuse to start with, you know, whether it be football, you know, thing at small, or I don't know if you lost your job, or if you got a job, or you had a successful contract come in, and that is an excuse to do that. However, eventually it doesn't become an excuse. You just go home, the shop's over there, I'm drinking because I want to drink, and that is eventually the path that it leads you down.
Yes.
You don't justify yourself to anyone eventually, because you just do what you want when you want and drink. At the time when I first started, and mine started getting bad about 6 or 7 years ago, my ex-partner at the time, you know, there'd be all these justifications. They're not, obviously, but eventually it gets to the point, well, do you know what? I'm not justifying that. That's what I want to do. Not really worried what anyone else thinks. Sure. And eventually everyone leaves you, and then you're sat in a box room drinking $6.99 red wine, wanting to forget about life.
I think that's really powerful what you've just said there. You know, life when we're drinking and using becomes very small, doesn't it? You know, it can go from socially acceptable, fun, laughs to a very isolated existence where we're lonely, drinking on our own, full of resentment and anger and fear.
Yeah, and I think to start with, it was definitely progressive, because I would drink, you know, go and watch boxing, start at 10, finishes at 11, would drink, blah, 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 stop, fine. And then eventually it'd get to 2 a.m. And then eventually I wouldn't go to sleep. And I wouldn't sleep next day. And it'd be just until I just physically couldn't do it anymore. It was just, I can't do it anymore. That is it. Like I've collapsed to sleep.
Switched off.
Wake up, and then I'd have 2 days of, I can't do this. Excuse me, can't do this. And I genuinely thought I wouldn't do it again. I had people in my ear, you know, no, and I knew, you know, I'm not silly. I know exactly what I was doing, but I couldn't stop it.
No.
And I had stopped it off my own back a couple of times, 6, 7 months, 10 months. And I genuinely put on Facebook, I genuinely believed I'd done it, genuinely. But I always had in the back of my mind when I went in the Weatherspoons, he's got a pint there, that'll be me one day. I never once thought teetotal.
I remember you telling me a story about when you were sober for a year once.
Yeah.
Tell me the story behind that.
So basically, one of my best friends' nephews sadly passed away a few years ago of cancer. So I thought that if I'd done a 1 year no beer, that is good cause for it to, get fund. Got £2,500 raised, and I thought if I've got something like that to spur me on, which was a horrendous ordeal for him and his family.
Of course.
That is I can do this. I think subconsciously I knew that I needed something like that. I wasn't gonna do it. Even my ex-partner, always was, trying to get me on the straight and narrow. And even then, the times that I failed, it still wasn't enough. But I thought, different tact, this and raising money for a cancer charity. So that's what done it. And at the time, I always didn't think I was an alcoholic, because I could go into a Wetherspoons, a pub, see everyone around me drinking, and it wouldn't bother me. I could have a laugh without it, and I'm loud without it. I'm louder with it, and it was fine. And that, but my addiction problems is sort of like negating the negative stuff in my head, from an early age, and that. So when I was on this 1 year no beer, going out to places and that, playing pool, what we've all said, wasn't an issue, and it sort of got me through, knowing that I was doing it for this charity. But as soon as that was, I was like, I've rewarded myself now. I've been sober. Do you know what? I've got a free night here. Well, not a free night how someone normally do it. It's a free night, of 125 units going down my neck. And then before you know it, we're here.
You're back in it. So thank you for sharing that. And I think that, takes us back to that. We drink to celebrate, we drink to commiserate, don't we? But I wanted to ask you, what was the catalyst for you deciding that you were going to try and stop drinking again?
So basically, I've split up with my ex-partner last year, and I've had a bit of trouble accessing my son, and it really is my son, really, that's sort of come to the forefront. He deserves better than what I was given, and I've done it a couple of times on my own, like we said, not only temporarily, and this time I'd done 6 or 7 months again of sober, been to stag do's, been to birthday parties, bulletproof. I thought I'll terminate it here, mate. And so a couple of things, in the house and that I was getting went wrong, and that was like the straw that broke the camel's back, and boom, I was off drinking. And this time there was no excuses. I'm just getting home from work. I'm lonely in a little bedsit, like you say, your world shrinking. That was in a little bedsit drinking, and it got to the point on February the 12th, which was 5 days before I come to 11, was a weekend where I must have had 200 units. I mean, I don't know how I woke up on Monday morning. And as I said, I'd previously spoken to you 2 or 3 weeks previously, and then we're both obviously quite busy, and I've got business. And I think that was a good excuse, that I missed your call, you missed mine. Oh, we'll keep it as call tennis for now.
Yeah.
On my part. But then that was, my auntie actually said to me, you need professional help. This was on the Sunday when I was having an argument with her about something. And that rung true, really. And then I spoke to you on the Monday and fast-tracked myself in. 3.5 days later, I was in your place. So
that's good. It's great, and I think it's important to share about some of these catalysts, these events that take place, because often we see people who can be, in a addictive cycle for a period of time, and it normally takes something that's going to happen in order to stop the process temporarily, in order for somebody to access the help. And talking about your auntie there also saying to you that she felt you needed professional help, I imagine that resonated with you on some level and helped you go to the next step.
Yeah, it does. I mean, I think I generally think people around me thought I had a drink problem. I mean, because of the media perception of alcoholism is a little bit different to what I now know by coming on a program. And I've gone back. The funny thing is, I've gone back and said, like, I'm an alcoholic, and they're saying, "Are you sure?" Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, you don't drink every day.
Yeah.
But when you got someone quite close to you saying, "Look," the message was short and sweet. There's none of this dancing around it. You need professional help. And that's what I did. And I've always now tried to do the best I can to get that. And look, I think what you said is true. The mindset of dealing with certain problems, that was my, you know, drink was so easy. It is so easy. Like I said, I was ordering off Just Eat. I didn't even have to get in my car. You know, I weren't even necessarily, you know, I didn't have any alcohol in me. I could drive and get it, but that's how lazy I was being because I was in my joggers and that.
Sure.
So I could get it literally to my door. That's an easier way of dealing with my house has fell through, rather than, well, it's not going to do me any good, but rather than just go, right, let's go on Rightmove and find another one. And wasn't that easy? That's 2 clicks of a button as well as ordering that can of beer.
Sure.
So it's just that mindset. And when I came in, you know, people said to me, you know, you write stuff down and what have you. We all know that I've said previously about your problems and whatever. And it's writing it down, seeing it, and actually having a moment to reflect on it, which with ADHD and how my life is running the business, it was 101 mile an hour. It sound as mad as it sounds, you just don't really, I didn't really sort of take anything on board. It was in one ear and out the other.
Sure. So you're at this junction now. You enter into rehab, and all of a sudden you're in a very different environment to what you've probably been used to. But the question I got is what role do you feel you going into rehab played in your recovery and your life as it is today at 67 days sober?
Massively. Like I said, I've been 67 days before, but this is different. Totally different. I said when I signed in there, I've had my own business since 2008. The phone has been in my hand. I've been Turkey, Barcelona, Milan. Phone's in my hand. Yeah, 3 A4 signs. Yeah. Can't put it down, right? And when I signed up for this program, I was like, what? I got my phone for 15 minutes a day. I was like, bloody hell, I ain't gonna be able to deal with that. Etc. And I got there and they took the phone off me. And do you know what? After 3 days, I was like, actually, I don't want it today. It was like a total reset of life, really. And like I said, I would go in the living room. The other guests would be somewhere else. And it'd be the first time I'd be in the living room with no entertainment. And I've never done that. And you sit there and reflect, and I can digest what I've taken in the classroom from the program leader, rather than go on Twitter and it's not digested. So I've sat there with silence in a living room with a telly and everything, where normally the telly would be on, music channels would be on, I'd be on my phone, Spotify would be on the Amazon Echo. It's not digested for me, especially like say with ADHD. And so I was doing that, bringing that in, but also being around people. The one thing I really, really did like about the program was everyone in that house, bar the practice nurse, had been through what you'd been through. And I was looking at someone very similar to me who has massively, massively turned their lives around. In fact, they're now teaching me how to get myself on the right path. I don't think there's nothing more powerful than that, really. And that's the thing. I've got a lot of intelligent people around me back in Norfolk telling me similar things, not as knowledgeable as the people in the house, nowhere near, but you don't listen to them.
It's interesting that, because you've just touched on something there that I think is really poignant in recovery and very powerful, is that, you know, somebody who's been through it and trodden the path before us, who is then teaching us a different way of living. From my own experience, I listen to them much more than I would do somebody who is, a taught or an academic or somebody who's, a doctor or a consultant. The power in that far outweighs anything I've ever experienced. So just as we think about that then, Jace, what are some of the tools that you would have learned whilst you were in rehab that you've been able to put into practice whilst you're, back home?
So the first thing that you get told really when you go in there is your life unmanageable, through alcohol or whatever addiction it may be. And to me, it wasn't, to start with. It was getting to the point of being unmanageable. It obviously, as I described earlier, it then did get manageable. So when I went in there and I was very nervous, I really didn't know what to expect. I walked into a kitchen, people in there. I'll come in at lunchtime, really, really nice. And then we went into the classroom, and it's basically, they're saying, it's writing down basically all your resentments that you've got in your life, all your sort of like hurt, people you've hurt, all everything like that, and actually writing it down. And when you do that, I'm thinking in my head, yeah, that's their fault. That's their fault. That's their fault. That's their fault. You write it down, and it's like, oh, oh dear, yeah, maybe not.
I like that one. They say when you're pointing one finger at somebody, there are three pointing back.
Yeah,
and I think that's what you're describing there.
But also, I've jumped the thing, which is something I normally do. So obviously, that's a bit further down the road. But the other thing is that you've got to say that you can't do it alone. And obviously, there's a higher power talk, which is very relevant, because like a room full of 6 addicts is a higher power. And obviously, we were in the room, and you had 6 people, all from different parts of England, all from different jobs, whatever. And Rob would ask a question, and other than the tone of the voice that I sound like a farmer, we all sound exactly the same. We've got the same answer.
Yeah.
Everything's pretty much, it's like, this is scripted, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's like a collateral thing that we're all, and then you go outside, have a vape, what have you, have your breakfast or have your dinner there, and you're all the same.
There's a commonality, isn't there?
And then with that, once you know that, you don't really mind so much about sharing things that maybe you wouldn't have done to other people.
Totally. So what would you say are some of the key strategies that you might have learnt in rehab, though, that you're now implementing back at home and in life and at work?
Yeah. So a good one is the gratitude list. Just waking up in the morning, writing down a gratitude list. Like I said, I've got a sign making company, so I've made myself an A4 dry wipe sign. It says gratitude on the top, and then it's got a man with his arms up in the air, sort of in the background, and you write on there your 10 things that you're grateful for, that if I drink again, all 10 of them might as well rip the sign down and throw it in the bin. So that's good. You've also got it's good to talk. So like they taught me, if you are feeling down, and that is a moment when before that you maybe have a drink, message someone. When you go to the meetings, get the phone numbers, which I did. Message them. Just, how are you? Don't sound a lot, but just getting a message back from someone like-minded is decent, is very good. Meetings, online meetings. Again, it's the community. One thing also that I learned from there, and it's different for everyone else, but for me, it was a big thing that I just rushed everything. They've taught me to having breakfast at the table. I know that sounds, but when you're an alcoholic, one, you don't have breakfast really, and if you do, it's at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So just to slow your life down, and take on board everything that's around you.
So it's given you some routine.
Definitely.
So being able to get up in the morning, have some breakfast, plan your day, get to work, do your work, have lunch.
Yeah, and another thing that I found is when I used to go to work, I would wear the clothes that I'm wearing now. You wouldn't know I was at work. Look, I said, I don't have a uniform, but then seeing people and now I've got different outfit for work. People know when I'm at work. I'm smarter because it all went out the window.
Different attitude then.
Yeah, everyone out the window. I remember I went to a car sales. I went for a meeting, for a big car sales firm, and I rocked up in ripped jeans and not done my hair. This is like a couple of weeks before I come in. And there was a passing comment about it, and at the time, to be honest with you, I didn't really care because I was just looking forward to getting home and having another, Madry.
Yeah.
And that's where it goes. And then like the differentiate from work to pleasure, and now people know when I'm at work,
And you know when you're at work.
yeah,
And there's a real difference.
it was a blur.
Yeah.
And I think that you hit the nail on the head with routine, and alcoholics and addicts don't have a routine. If it is a routine, it's a routine around the beer.
Drinking and using and finding ways it means to
Yeah.
get more.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So looking towards the future, and life is very different for you today. And I know you've had experience of longer periods of sobriety or periods away from drinking. But today you feel, and it certainly sounds like you've got a different lifestyle, a different approach to how you're doing things and how you're conducting your life. But looking at that, and I know we don't like to get too carried away in looking too far forwards, but what are your hopes and aspirations now that you are living this new life?
Obviously, access with family reasons with my son and that, obviously it goes without saying, which has impacted, and that's what I've done, previous things, what I've done. But I think I want to get on board with supporting other people, really. And that is what's drilled into you at the 11, that was drilled into you, if you help someone else, it helps you. And that is so true, because when I used to talk, and I can talk a lot, it'd be about pointless stuff. So I'm looking at now helping other people, and that's what I said. And I've had a few messages since I've been out of rehab and that, from people who didn't actually think they had a problem, and they've messaged me and they stay anonymous, and we're having dialogue, referred them to places, as we said, and that is it. And I think that's definitely something that I need, something to occupy my mind, because work does do that. And that's why I do it quite a lot. But I need to, and that is where I now want to take on a role of doing something like that.
I think that's really important, because work, we have to be really careful with an addictive personality that we can sort of cross addict into work. Although we might think that that's healthy because we're not drinking, actually it can be counterproductive. And when we're looking at getting heavily involved in work or exercise or shopping or spending or whatever it might be, it comes back to the question of, well, why am I doing this? So, which leads me nicely onto my next question, because life always throws things at us, sometimes unexpectedly, and maintaining our newfound sobriety and recovery is important. But I've got to ask you the question. I mean, is there anything that you think you might not be able to handle in recovery?
I mean, you don't never say never. I mean, all I can say is, since I left 11, what now? It's probably 34 days ago. I've had a couple of things happen in my personal life that I'll do well to top, and I haven't drunk. I went into a room on Tuesday. I'd been into that room 6 months ago. And my feelings in that room on Tuesday were 75% reduced.
Okay.
In anxious apprehension. What are they looking at me? People thinking. So, with that on board,
Yeah.
and there's a scenario there from 7 months ago to now, after leaving a program, proof's in the pudding.
Brilliant. Well, there you go. It's wonderful to hear you say that. And lastly, for those people who are listening, who may be considering recovery, stopping drinking, changing their relationship with alcohol, is there anything that you would like to say to them that may be helpful? I mean, everything you've said, by the way, already is, but I'm just thinking if there's anything specific you'd like to share if you were back there listening to this podcast.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the only thing I wish I would have done is done this earlier. And I think if you have got that 1%, just 1% doubt, whatever, or someone said, just really, really have a deep think, because if I'd have done this earlier, I wouldn't have missed 14 months of my son's life, and that is a big lesson for me that, you know, I've took on the chin. But I think the best thing that I can say is, if anyone has any doubt about the path that they're taking, is it's just to reach out and have that initial talk with someone, because I certainly wish I would have done it 3 or 4 years ago. I went to an AA meeting, and if I would have carried on going, I doubt I'd be sitting on this sofa. I don't know, may well have done, but at least that was the time me. So I think as soon as you think that maybe, you know, I think that's the time to reach out.
Wise words. Thank you very much indeed. Jace, it's been a pleasure. I've really enjoyed speaking with you. And again, congratulations on 67 days, and one day at a time. May it long continue.
Thank you.
Thank
Cheers.
you.